Hello, this is Ed Rigsbee. This is another edition of Raw and Unedited for Association Executives. This is where we give you tips, tactics, innovations, and solutions, all intended to make you a more effective association executive. Have you ever found yourself in the situation where sometimes you're just not a happy camper? You got the pressure of the board members, you got the pressure of the volunteer chief elected officer, you got the pressure of various members, and then to boot you got your staff, and sometimes you're just pulling your head and going crazy. And just to show you this is raw and edited, I just dropped my notes. They're back. Oh, that's too funny.
Yay!
So anyway, to deal with this, I have Leslie Pogue. She's the author of 28 Days to Happy, and even more importantly, I think her book, The Positive Side of the Bad Stuff, I think for a lot of association executives could be very helpful. So Leslie, let's get into, so you're sitting across the table from a person that's got, 5, 10, 15, 20 employees. They've got anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 members. And, they've got a whole bunch of volunteer leaders, and people are just coming at them from all directions, and they take that and
right.
And what would you say to that person if you're sitting across the desk from them to help them enjoy their life a little bit better and enjoy their job a little bit better?
Well, thank you, Ed. I would tell them about the process of happy. The thing about happy is it's saturated, and when people think about happy, they think about an emotion. And my approach to happy isn't exactly that. It's more of a process. So when I'm looking at that person that has all these things coming at them, I don't even talk to them. I don't even break down the happy. I just start asking them questions along the lines of the happy. Like, for instance, the first H is to hear your truth. And I ask them, so what's the truth about your situation? What's really going on? Have you talked to your people? Have you asked their questions? Have you asked their input? Have you communicated with them the big picture so that they are working in tandem with you to get to that end result? And then at the end, I won't go through the whole happy right this moment, but after I go through all of the H.A.P.P.Y, then I make it clear to them that actually what I just went through with you is the process to really think through how to solve those problems and how to talk to your people. Because communication is huge, and with generational communication, which is what we're dealing with a lot now, it's vital that you ask the right questions the first time so you get the answers that you're really looking for.
So let's just unpack this for, the association executives that are watching this broadcast. So explain to me the habit of happy. Give me the H, the A, the P, and I guess the second P. And
the H is hear your truth.
Okay.
The A is acknowledge your feelings. The first P is to give yourself permission to feel better. The second P is purge the past, and Y is yield to your new life. Now, a lot of that originated on a personal side, but from a professional side, if you're kind of breaking that down, your hear your truth is kind of a given, like what is the reality of the situation, not what you want it to be, what you've told yourself it is, what is actually happening. And you might not like the answer, but be honest about what's really happening. To acknowledge your feelings in business, feelings aren't so much what we want to focus on, but when I say acknowledge your feelings, you do need to really address, how are you feeling about what's happening? How are your people feeling about what's happening? What is actually going on? Because whether we want to acknowledge the feelings in the room, they're there. So you have to call them out. To give yourself permission to feel better is basically just let whatever feelings and whatever has happened be okay. We're working with humans, and we're human. So that means we have to allow for human situations. So let it be okay for what it is right now, and then start from here to move forward, which is why the second P of purge your past, forget about what happened last week, last month, even 10 minutes ago. Figure out what you want to do going forward, and work together about how you're going to solve the problem or communicate further on from here. And then yield to your new life is really just living in what the decision is that you've made.
So let's talk for just a minute about the PP and the second of the two Ps. You know, as I'm listening to you, I'm kind of thinking a lot of people really obsess. And, you know, I guess since I live in a glass house, I should probably be the first to admit this, that I think a lot of us, including me, can be owned by our history, our tapes.
Sure.
And, you know, things that have come together to create who we are, good and bad, can be limiters. So that second P, you know, purge the past. Could you go into that a little deeper? Because I'm kind of thinking, you know, somebody thinking out there go, well, yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about what would be your methodology, or what would be your ideas, or what would be your recommendations on purging the past.
Thank you. I mean, you're absolutely right. And in a corporation and in associations and business and especially in associations, because again, you have people that are both paid and volunteering their time. So you have such a global dynamic there. And so when you're purging the past, what I mean by that and what is really important is to not live in this is the way we've always done it, because times change and you have to change with them. I know I read an article that associations are looking that in the year 2025, they do want to have more content, more engagement, more things for their members. So because of that, you can't keep doing things the way you've done it in the past. So that said, what do you want to do? And that's the beautiful thing about technology. So purging the past means forget about how things used to be done, and forget about blame and all the things of who said what and who did what and whose plan it was for this, that, and the other thing. What do you want to bring to your members, your population today? So purge all of that. And the methodology I would say to do that is to have a plan. And that is something that a lot of people don't stop and take the time to do. You want to look out and see, where do you want your organization to be 5, 10, even just 2 weeks from now, a month from now? Even if you want to start small, start planning what you want to be able to bring to your members in the next month, 6 months to a year, and over the next turn of leadership. And that way you're all working toward it, so that also when you're doing that succession of the next person coming in, which typically is the person behind the person that, you know, that's leading now, they're already on that plan. They already know, they already have that vision already in place. So you can purge that, well, I know that they did it this way, I want to do it that way. You're already, as a group, starting to work for the greater good. So the biggest thing I would highly recommend is having a plan.
You know, I recently heard a gentleman say, if you fight hard for your limitations, you deserve to keep them. Not my line, somebody else's.
I love it though.
And so as you're talking, I'm kind of thinking about, you know, we've got the baby boomers that are association executives.
Yes.
And we've got the Gen X that are association executives, and not many Gen Ys yet. And when I'm thinking about the different generations, and I don't necessarily want to get into a, you know, whether it's baby boomer or Gen Y, but I think more of look at it. Okay, somebody that's like in their 50s, 60s, where are they in their career? Somebody that's in their, you know, 40s, 50s, where are they in their career? Somebody that's in their 30s, where are they in their career?
Right.
And whatever tag we put on these generation names, that's irrelevant. But
right.
So for you, you know, if you're talking to a, but just to be trendy and cool, we'll use baby boomer. So if you're talking to a 50, 60-year-old person, a baby boomer, and you're talking to them about, you know, purging their past and letting go of their limitations, and you find that they're holding hard for them, I don't think you want to let them keep them. How would you go about, if you were sitting across the desk from somebody that you were coaching, how would you convince a baby boomer association executive to let go of those limitations? How would you help them build a plan? I don't quite understand that.
No, that's great. I would basically ask them what's working and what isn't. So I break it down for them so they can actually see it and so they can touch it, so they can have a real grasp of what's really happening. It is easy to hold on to the way you've done things. And I know baby boomers, I'm a Gen Xer, so I think we get caught up in the same, the same box really, is that I'm used to doing it, and especially Gen Xers. Gen Xers are, look, just tell me what you want me to do, let me go do it. Don't stand over my shoulder. So with a baby boomer, I would definitely say, okay, so what do you like about what's working? And let me hear from you. What isn't working? So what do you recommend? I get them to talk about it, get them to think it through, and get them to really make it their own idea, to embrace some of the newer ideas, and always remind them that you can always go back to how things were done. Just be open to trying this other thing. But the first step is always to walk them through letting it be their idea. Let them say, well, we could do this, or I heard someone mention this other thing. If we can do it this way, then I'd be open to it. So once you start hearing them themselves use that kind of verbiage, if this, then that, then you can usually introduce the purging of old tasks, even if it's one at a time or two more, and then they can kind of ease into the newer ideas.
Let me take a different tact on this. So we've got an association executive, and let's just take a scenario. Okay. Let's take a scenario where, let's say this association has been predominantly member-driven for the last 20, 30, 50 years. I've worked with some associations that's been member-driven for the last 100 years.
Wow.
But now, in the old days, the upper level people in the association, they would get into leadership. They had legions of secretarial type clerical people to help them. They go back to the office and tell their secretary or some clerical person, here, go do this.
Exactly.
Today, those volunteers don't have those clerical people anymore because, who today has a typist? 30 years ago, every executive had a typist. Today they don't. They have to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So when you got association leaders, that the volunteer leaders that are holding on to the past, that when in the old days, the volunteers did it all, but it really wasn't the volunteers, it was their secretarial team.
Right.
And today, the volunteer leaders want to hold on to that style, but they don't have the time, they don't have the resources, meaning the clerical staff. What would you say to the association executive? Okay, we're trying to take an organization and move it from volunteer-driven to paid staff-driven. How would you help that association executive to deal with their volunteer leaders to understand it's not 1963 anymore, and a different paradigm today, and the paradigm of 1963 doesn't work today?
Correct.
How would you coach or guide an association executive to help with their volunteer leaders, to get their volunteer leaders to let go of the past?
Well, it's the key to that is to, again, show them. You got to show them how they save time in transferring that. If you're constantly doing everything, you have no time to do what you say you want to do. So if you're spending time typing and doing all the minutia of what it takes to run an organization, then you don't have time to lead. you're doing the back office stuff, and that's not what you're there to do. So again, the great thing about technology is it has allowed us to outsource things without sending it away. So we have lovely things like Fiverr and Upwork and all these online processes, virtual assistants. We have so many things that are minimal cost. So you do have to, again, like you said, change that volunteer into that paid way. But it's not too cost intensive, so it doesn't impact the organization too greatly. But it also gets that back office work, that stuff that you're used to delegating to someone else. It gives you a place to delegate it. It also gives you metrics of what, you can keep track of what's going on and what's happening. So you do still have a level of control, but you're not sitting there spending your time doing the administrative stuff, because that's not what you're there to do. You're there to lead. And so bringing that on into the fold is helpful. And also looking at your members and seeing which ones want, especially your younger members, where do they, like you said, where do they want to go in their career? Here's an opportunity to build their resume by being your support, by helping you out. And that is definitely the better use of the resources that you have in front of you.
So as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, okay, so if I'm the association executive, maybe one of the key benefits that I would share with my board, let's just use the board as an example.
Yes.
That, in the old days, you probably had a lot of staff people to do a lot of the minutia that needed to get done, but today you don't. So today, if you want to have your members do the running of the organization, then the members are really going to be doing nothing but a bunch of secretarial work where they could and should be doing leadership work. So it's like, let the paid staff do the secretarial, the clerical, the technical, all the minutia of the day, and get the volunteer leaders to actually lead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, get the volunteer leaders to share their vision. What do they want to accomplish? And then, use that paid staff because they're paid. So use them to execute instead of having the leadership constantly doing it. Have that paid staff do it. Because again, if you have a vision and you share that vision with them, then they know exactly what to do. They also know what to suggest so that you can go, oh, that's a great idea. Why don't you go run with it? And that also empowers your staff to want to do more, because now you have leadership that's leading the entire organization, but you also have leadership that is motivating and encouraging and growing the staff of people who joined this staff for a reason. So you're getting it from both sides. And I think that that's like one of the best ways that you can grow your staff.
So I'm just, I'm futzing here with my, with the computer.
I'm gonna take a sip of tea while you do that, actually.
Yeah, I'm sitting here futzing with the computer, and all of a sudden I realize that I put it in full screen mode and all kinds of cool things. As I'm kind of thinking about this, I'm thinking about the train wreck scenarios.
Oh.
And so you've probably in your career, and dealt with situations where you've tried to help people and they were a train wreck in the making. And what are some of the, and it wouldn't be appropriate to mention ABC organization,
no.
But what are some of the signs, the symptoms you see that when people really aren't happy and you see that they're heading for a train wreck?
Well, just so I understand what you mean when you say that, you mean like that the plan is not going to happen as scheduled, or what do you mean when you say?
I'm thinking more individually. I'm thinking more about, the association executive, is trying to make stuff happen, but they're going down a rabbit hole that's going to take them to never land, where they're never going to come back from.
Sure.
And they're going to burn out. They're going to, tick everybody off and get either burned out and quit, get fired, who knows what.
Sure.
But so, so if I'm an association executive and I'm, watching this, number one, probably the people that should watch it won't watch it.
That's usually the case.
But if I was somebody and I was kind of in a desperate place and I'm going, oh my God, I'm just, just things are crazy. If, some of the symptoms that you see where people are like that,
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if you notice this about you, if you notice that about you, if you notice this about you, if you notice that about you, you might be a candidate for working on a plan to get happy.
Yeah.
What would some of those things that you've seen in the past? I'm not asking for an exact checklist of 10 things,
No.
but things that somebody could maybe, if they're watching, identify, ooh, maybe I should, maybe I thought things were going well. Maybe I thought I was happy. Maybe I'm not as happy camper as I thought I was. Maybe I might want to, garnish a plan for myself to turn things around. What are some of the things that you've noticed?
Well, you definitely want to be on the lookout for your own habits. Are you sleeping more? Are you not looking forward to going there anymore? Are there people that you're avoiding? Are you not talking to certain people because of whatever the case is? Are you finding reasons to not make that meeting? Like, are you like, what? Actually, I think so-and-so can handle this. Or I'm not feeling very well today. Or things like that, just very obvious, very subtle things, and they usually start off very subtle. They're usually minor. Usually, it's something like sleeping too much. Or you're in a situation, say you're in a meeting, or you're talking to a specific person, and you feel yourself shutting down, and you just literally want to go to sleep in that moment. That is your body's way of saying, I'm not digging this at all. So little things like that that's where it starts. But if you don't catch it on that end, then you will notice things. Maybe you are a little bit more angry. So maybe you're lashing out a little bit more. Dare I say, suddenly you're cussing for people who don't really, but then, when you are angry, maybe you do start cussing. I mean, there's just total change in behavior. And then if you don't address it by then, once it really gets to a place where it can really shut you down, is really where nothing is right. The traffic is bad, your spouse everything's wrong, that the kids can't do anything right, even the doorknob isn't turning right. I mean, everything is just not right. What's wrong with the world? Like, why can't they get this? This is crazy. That's when it's really out of control. And it seems kind of obvious, but these are the things that we as human beings, especially when we're busy going, we totally ignore all of those things.
So let me ask you this. So you've got a situation where now I'm thinking about, okay, the number 2 paid staff person.
Uh-huh.
They're called the associate executive director. There's a million titles, CEO, whatever. So they're watching this video and they're going, oh my God, she's talking about my boss. and then
yes, I probably am.
So should this person buy your book 28 Days to Happy and set it on the boss's desk, or is that a job ending move or job? Yeah, So if as I'm thinking about this, I'm the person that I used to be happy, but my boss is now a pain in the what, and I'm nowhere near as happy. And if I could just get my boss happy, I could be happy. I realize that you got your goals and your steps and your plans, so that person can be happy, the number 2 person. But is there a way that number 2 person in the association could help the number 1 person, talking paid staff, to help that number 1 person that they're seeing all of these indicators that their boss is just not a happy camper? What can they do?
Well, actually, they have to start with themselves first, because I'm sure that they're on some level co-signing some of whatever their boss is doing. So it has to start with you. So it definitely can't be what I heard and I know it's just an example, but I'm sure that the number 2 person is thinking this at some point. If my boss was happy, I would be happy too. And that is not the case. So the first thing I would say, is to take care of you first. So make sure that you are running through your own things. You are checking on you. You're going through your happy process. What's true for you? How are you feeling about it? Purge all that. So take care of you first. After that, then what you want to do is just the first thing, and the answer will almost always be, yeah, I'm fine. But the first thing you want to ask your boss is, hey, how are you doing? You okay? And just plant the seed that, I'm seeing something different. They almost will never get it on the first time. But by about the third try of, hey, are you okay? Why are you asking me that? And here's your open door. And now you can have a conversation. Now, like you said, you don't want to do anything like don't plant the book on their desk. But here's an opportunity to say, hey, I've noticed this and I've noticed that, some subtle things, just mention it to the boss and say, is there anything I can do to help? Take it off of them and put it on you. How can I make your life easier? And just start the conversation, and that will ease you into, again, going through that process. And you can ask the questions along those lines. Like I said, the happy I talk about isn't the emotion. It's truly the process. So you can even ask the boss those questions, and you don't have to use that verbiage. You don't have to say, what is your truth? You can say, what is going on with you? Well, how are you feeling about that? Well, how can we make that better? Well, what do we need to get rid of? And then that'll ease you into the yielding of your life. So just getting used to that 5 steps of checking in with yourself, with the people around you, that can just really get the conversation going and lead you in a direction to take action on getting it out of the way and moving forward.
So which of your books, 28 Days to Happy or The Positive Side of Bad Stuff? So if I'm that number 2 person and my number 1 person is got their head where the sun doesn't shine, which book would I buy to help me as far as a guide to help them, number 1, make sure they're in good shape, and number 2, to then at least have some indicators, some questions, a guide to help that other person?
Well, here's the thing. When I wrote the books, I hadn't quite come up with the happy yet. So there you go. But what I will say, the happy came from those books. So what I will say is you would buy 28 Days to Happy for you, because that is still a guide to get you through and kind of talk you through a process of understanding what's going on with you.
You want to show the book?
Oh, yes, absolutely. 28 Days to Happy.
Okay, hold it up for just a couple seconds there. 28 days, okay.
Absolutely. And then the positive side of the bad stuff,
okay,
that you want to not necessarily give to your boss, but you want to kind of go in and say, maybe today I'll just mention this, hey, check out this blog, because that's what the positive side of the bad stuff is. It's a compilation of blogs. So there's random acts of helpfulness. One of my favorites is actually the bullseye. I'll see if I can find it really quickly. What's the name of it? It's not your fault. Oh yeah, failure to hit the bullseye is never the fault of the target. So things like that. So taking those little blogs and just putting them in front of your boss, send it as an email, just have you read it together, whatever. That is how you can kind of lift them up and kind of motivate them a little bit. But the 28 Days to Happy would be for you to start.
So when we're kind of drilling down into the individual. You know, a lot of times consultants and speakers and stuff, we get asked, you know, who's our perfect client? You know, who do we really enjoy working with? And I mean, for me, I really enjoy working with association executives, you know, helping them with their you know, membership growth. But who do you really enjoy working with? Who's your perfect client?
My perfect client is women, and I know that's broad, but
well, it's a little bit broad.
Yeah, it's a little broad, but I would say women executives primarily, women that are leaders, and that's primarily it. I love working with organizations, but again, my feeling, and that's not to say that men can't benefit from it too, but when I first mention what I talk about, Men kind of go, yeah, that's a little touchy-feely for me. So men usually have to warm up to it. It works for men, and the men that I have worked with love it. Once they really understand the process, they're like, oh man, this is awesome, because it's to the point, which men love. It's just like a checklist of things. But women, I like working with women, one, because I am a woman, and I'm also the kind of woman that has done what a lot of them do. I've been a leader, and I get in the weeds, and I never ask for help. So when you're that kind of woman, it's hard. And the other kind of woman I like to work with is that woman that when you ask them, you know, what changes have you made, or what impact have you made? They can't answer it, not because they haven't made an impact, but they can't answer it because the way they approach what they do is simply, this is what I do. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. This is just, to me, this is what should be done anyway. So what change I'm making is breathing. That's how I look at life. And so those are the women I like working with, because that's me. But also I understand their plight. I understand the loneliness that they feel. I understand the heaviness that they can feel when it's like, why isn't this working, or what is going on, or why am I so drained? It's because you've given so much of yourself out there, and you don't even register how much you've given, like how much you changed lives. And so those are the leaders I like to work with, because they don't even stop to think that there's a problem, because they're like, well, this is how it goes anyway, so let me just do what I got to do.
You think that's a gender thing? I mean, do you think, and I don't know how to put this delicately, but do you think guys are a little more selfish in the respect that they take care of themselves better, and maybe women, because of the internal mother instinct or something, I don't know, tend to be more giving and giving up of themselves to the point where there's so little of them left for them?
Yeah, well, I do and I don't. I think that it can go both ways. I think it depends on the guy you're running up against. But I also think it's because there's no way to get, I mean, we always try and dance around the man-woman thing. And let's face it, at the end of the day, we are different. We're raised different. We operate in the world different. And at the end of the day, it's different. And men are allowed actually to butt heads. It's actually okay for them. Whereas when women do it, it's more of a, well, you're not a team player. You're not going along with the team. You're being emotional. That's one of my favorite buzzwords. You're being emotional. And it is gender. It does fall into that gender, paradox thing. And it doesn't have to be. I think that you have sensitive men that run into the same problem, just like you have women that are like, and they will just run you down. So I think you have that whole spectrum on both sides of the fence. I think what's important is that you focus on the individual and how do they operate. You have some individuals that need a little extra hand-holding, both male and female. And you have some that are like, go away. What do you want me to do? Get out of my face. I got it. And then you have all those in between. So I think that it's not so much a male-female thing, although, like I said, I do find that my process works best with women. I think that it also just depends on the individual. Because like I said, the men that have embraced it, they too have run the gamut. I've helped men that are like, but I've also helped men that are like, oh, just help me. Yeah.
So I don't understand that. You said that your process works better with women, or generally works better with women. I didn't quite catch, or don't quite understand. Why is that?
I think they're more open to, I think, I don't want to say I think, because it's not I think, I know. The word happy, even though it's an acronym, because it's happy, it just throws men. It just does. On first approach, it just throws them. Again, once they understand it, they're like, oh, I get it. But that first habit of happy is like, that's a chick thing. And so women embrace that a little bit sooner. With men, it's a little bit more of a push.
So let me ask you this, Leslie. So if a person's watching this video and saying, "Oh my God, I need to get more of Leslie," how can they get more of you? I mean, do you have we didn't talk about this. Do you have a blog, or do you have articles out there, or besides if somebody goes, "Well, I need more of Leslie, but I can't afford to hire her to come in and help me fix myself, but I think that I'd like to get more." Is there more of Leslie available besides your books?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is definitely a website, and the website is www.thehabitofhappy.com. And on the website, I have a couple of processes and programs that you can purchase. I definitely have articles. There's definitely blogs on the website as well. So all of that comes out. There are also links to my previous, I'm still debating whether or not to resurrect it, but I had a YouTube show called The Positive Side of the Bad Stuff. So that is where I interviewed several people, men and women, mostly women to be fair, but men and women, on how they get to their happy and how they, have been successful and how they do their process. So there's a lot of really good resources on that website that you can utilize. You can also get a hold of me too. I'm happy to talk to people also. So, you can book some time to talk to Leslie directly if you want a little bit of me, and we can definitely.
How do they do that? How do they book time with you?
They go to the website. If you go to the website at the www.thehabitofhappy.com, there is a tab that says Book Leslie, and you can even schedule some time. So you can take that drop down and it'll show you how to book some time specifically with me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Leslie, this has been amazing. So, and let me just make sure I understand. The YouTube show, The Positive Side of Happy, it's still on YouTube, right?
It is still on YouTube, yes. The Positive Side of the Bad Stuff is still there. You can subscribe to it. And as I add content, you'd get notified about it.
Okay, great. And they can go to your website, The Habit of Happy?
The Habit of Happy, exactly. Keeping it simple.
When I hear The Habit of Happy, I'm kind of thinking this religious thing, the habit. I guess my old stuff. But then, hey, I have 3 older sisters, so I'm damaged.
I love it.
Let me share my old tapes when they put me in a dress,
Oh, no. Well, you know what? That is the job of the big sister. I mean, if you ask my younger brother, he's got stories. So that's our job. We're supposed to toughen you up. So they did their job.
Yeah, it's very funny. So, hey, Leslie, thank you so much. For all of you watching this video, get a hold of Leslie. Not only is she a lot of fun on this interview, just as a human being, she's a hoot. I really spend time with Leslie. It's hard not to be happy when you spend time with Leslie.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So go to thehabitofhappy.com and get on your Leslie. Leslie, thanks so much. I really appreciate you.
Anytime.